If you're looking for a sleek, minimalist sling that gives you a ton of organization and flexibility for your setup, whether it's everyday carry or a light camera loadout, the Urban UL1 by NayoSmart might surprise you. I know it surprised me. Now, just to be upfront, NayoSmart did send me this bag for the purpose of review, but they had no say in the content of this video. All thoughts here are completely my own. If you decide to buy this bag today, there is an affiliate link down below, and make sure to use your discount code FF10 to get 10% off. But why should you buy this bag? We're gonna get into it in this review. First, I'll give you a full tour of the bag, exterior and interior, and then we'll do a couple of real world loadouts, one for daily carry, one for like a light camera setup, and then finally test and see how large or full frame gear fits into here. Something that really impressed me about this bag was just how thoughtful everything is built. From the quality of the materials to the pocket layout, it really feels dialed in, really feels like NayoSmart is trying to pay attention to the details. That said, there are a couple of quirks I ran into with the strap and the main opening, so you'll want to be aware of that. All right, let's go ahead, dive in, see if the UL1 fits your everyday setup or creative workflow. So here on the front, we have just a big open pocket, no organization in there. The zippers are really nice, and there's like a little metal zipper pull there. That's great, it's a nice little touch. You do have some NayoSmart branding on the front. You know, sometimes people aren't really a fan of branding that can be seen, but I think this is done pretty tastefully. So I don't have a problem with that. I think it looks pretty good. On the sides, and this is both sides of the bag, you do have these open pockets with a cord lock here, and I actually got a lot of use out of these side pockets that I will get into a little bit later. But I mean, I think their intended use, at least what they're showing on their website, an umbrella, and if you notice, there's actually a little hole right there. And I think what that's for is just to let like extra water drain out, you know, if you're putting an umbrella in there. But beyond an umbrella, I actually found some other uses for it that I will show in the loadouts section. So on the side, you also do have these side straps that just go in with pretty standard clip-in buckle there, and they are pretty generous with what you can fit in here. I was able to get like a very small light hoodie sweater. So you could put maybe like a light rain jacket in here, you know, just kind of like hang it down. It's not gonna exactly be like a permanent place for you to keep that kind of stuff, but it does work as like a temporary, just put something in there for a little bit. And actually what they intended, at least what they're showing on their website, what they're intending is that this can convert into a luggage pass-through. I think that's really, really clever. If you saw my review of the Wandered 6-liter, then you'll know that one of my issues with that bag was that there was no luggage pass-through. And I think this is actually a pretty clever way to integrate that without having like a permanent strap that just goes across. So there is some really good flexibility to be had here. And then I mentioned the buckles are really nice. The strap material is really nice. The only thing that I would have liked to have seen is maybe like a stay right here, just to keep the strap locked in place when you're not using it. You know, as it is right now, they do just kind of tend to flop around a little bit. It doesn't get in your way, but you know, that's more just like an aesthetics thing. And then even speaking about the details, NayoSmart did install like a little leather or like a leather type material here at the end of the strap. So again, like another nice little touch there. There's nothing on the bottom. There is quite a bit of padding here that I will get into a little bit later. On the back, one big open pocket, no organization in here. And something I'll mention here just in regards to comfort. If you can see, this zipper pull is a little on the thicker side, just because it's kind of sewn over it itself a couple of different times. And it does provide like a really secure, nice feeling zipper pull. And, I've got a lot of confidence that the way that they did this, it will last and it will stay like that for however long you have the bag. But there were like a couple of times just wearing it where, I could maybe feel the thickness of the zipper on my back. Didn't happen all the time. It was just very occasionally from time to time I would kind of feel that. So maybe if they had like just a really thin strip of material here rather than like a double or triple sewn piece, maybe that could help that. I mean, you can also just because this is so close to the back, you can just kind of tuck that in a little bit if that tends to bother you. Like I said, wasn't a huge deal, but just something to be aware of. What I am a huge fan of is a carry strap. In this kind of size of bag, I feel like a top handle is really, really essential. And they were able to integrate it fairly seamlessly into this back panel, just a nice little carry handle that is perfect for, I set this down in a car or I set this down on a table at a coffee shop and I can just quickly grab it and go. I will also mention here that the material is something that did really surprise me. I'm going to see if I can catch the light a little bit. This material is like a nylon kind of material, and the only way that I can think to describe it is maybe if you had like a really, really nice like rain jacket. It's really smooth to the touch and there's some good texture to it. This is definitely not like a ballistic nylon material at all. Like they definitely went out of their way here to get a nice material that just, it feels good. I think it looks really good too. That is something that I've not seen very much in other bags. So that is a really nice touch. Then on the top, speaking of nice touches, we do have a coated zipper here. And again, like they could have just done the coated zipper and that's it, they're be done with it. But they went the extra mile here and put this leather style material on the top, kind of bordering the zipper. And I think it just provides like a really nice, classy look to it. So again, just NayoSmart really trying to think through like the details of their bags. On the strap itself, speaking of the details, again, they could have just done plain black strap here, but they decided to go the extra mile and put like this extra gray stitching. And I think it's a really nice touch. Like even on the back of one of the sides here, there is that same gray, more nice little touches. And then there is this branded padding, shoulder padding here. Now, if you saw my review of the Initech Desk Caddy Sling, they also had one of these paddings that I just wasn't really a fan of. I just could not get it to work. But this works really, really well in this particular case. I think the adjustment that they have, I was able to get it in multiple different positions. I will say like this is not a bag that is going to sit like high on your chest. This is going to be like a little bit lower on your back. Not as low as the Initech, but it's not something that's going to sit like really high. But overall, for when I was wearing it, I found it pretty comfortable. Something that could be a little bit of a downside for some people is if you've noticed there is no magnetic buckle or no kind of like quick release system here. Now this strap does come off, like if you press in this metal tab here, then you can slip it off of this ring. So you could even put a completely different strap on here if that's what you really wanted to do. But this clip is not really like a quick release system. This is not going to be something that you are getting in and out of a car and taking this on and off. If you're more partial to a kind of strap that you can very quickly hook and unhook, then maybe you could look into possibly replacing it with something else. But I think the material, the quality of it is really, really nice. And I do think it looks really sleek. Something else I'll mention here too as well. On this shoulder pad, if you can see this here, it does have a lip that kind of comes down just a little bit. And there were some times when I was pulling the bag like around my body, if I was wearing baggier clothing, that this would kind of get hung up on it. And not that it would like hinder me from pulling the bag, but it did provide like a little bit of resistance as I was pulling it around. So maybe for like a version 2 or something like that, it might be nice to, I don't know, maybe just like sew this padding just straight across where you don't have this flap coming down like that. Another minor little thing, just something to be aware of. And then in the time that I've worn it, I have gotten these creases into it. I'd be really interested to see what this material will look like in 6 months or a year, maybe 2 years, to see if it holds up. Obviously, if you had like a full grain, high quality leather, then it would just wrinkle and patina over time. But that's not what we're dealing with here. This is like a synthetic leather. Might be worth thinking about, if I was talking to NayoSmart, might be worth thinking about like putting a different material here on the bottom, just because that is like the primary place where this is going to be bending over someone's shoulder. So maybe I can come back in 6 months or something like that and just do like a 6-month update on how this strap has held up. Now we can get into the interior of the bag, and if this review has been helpful to you, like and subscribe. It really does help the channel a lot. So this is the main compartment here, and you do have the main open cavity. On the back, you have a area for a tablet. And then on the front area, you've got a few different things going on, which is really, really interesting and really cool. So on this front part, you do have an open zippered pocket. So that can just completely close, just like that. And then you have this additional magnetic sleeve here. And then inside this sleeve, it goes pretty deep. It goes down to, I would say, almost the bottom of the bag. So you do get a little bit of space to work with in there. But inside of the sleeve, there are 2 mesh pockets. See if I can show that. 2 mesh pockets here, and then smaller mesh pockets on the side. I actually got a lot of use out of those little side pockets that I'll show here in a bit with loadouts. And then here you do get another side mesh pocket, and I'm a huge fan of side mesh pockets inside of bags. I think they just provide a lot of flexibility for smaller items. And something that was really interesting is here next to the mesh pocket, there is actually a little sleeve here, a hidden sleeve for an AirTag tracker. I almost had a little bit of trouble finding this at first. So anytime a bag wants to include an AirTag tracker pocket, I'm here for it. Like I really appreciate that. On the opposite side, there is no mesh there. I think I would have still liked to have seen one more little mesh pocket over there. I think what they've provided here, it does work really well. Just to provide like that extra bit of flexibility, maybe one more here would have been nice. And then something that I always enjoy is when bags put some kind of little messaging or like Easter egg or branding on the inside. One thing to note, this stylish and practical series of backpacks is specifically designed to meet different lifestyles. I think this is just a carryover from their backpack line. Just like another little thing, doesn't affect anything, it's just purely aesthetic. I would have liked to have seen it say series of slings, because they do have a few different slings at this point. So what we're going to do now is get into some loadouts. How does it work for camera gear, for EDC gear? The first thing I'm going to do is load this out as like an everyday carry bag. So we've got a few items here. So first up, we've got a wallet, and that can go perfectly into this back pocket. No problem at all. And then a power bank. I've got a pretty thin power bank here, and it actually worked perfectly in this mesh pocket. And something that I've was a little unsure about at first, and I'm going to put the cable in there. Something I was a little unsure about at first is this magnetic function here. I just wasn't really understanding, why you would want that, but it actually provides a nice like little lock-in feature. I'm not sure if that's what they intended, but if this was just open, this could kind of float around when you have things in there. So putting that magnet in there just kind of locks this item in place. And it is like the perfect size for a power bank. So now I can just have this sitting straight in there and pull a cable out. Sunglasses can go pretty easily into this little zippered area here. And then pen can actually go into a few different spots. If you remember from earlier, this little side sleeve, it can go in there, no problem. It can also go onto like this little leather piece. That's what they show in their marketing materials. Or there is enough room way down at the bottom for it to just sit down there, no problem at all. What I really found useful for these little side sleeves is maybe like some chapstick. It fits perfectly in there. I also have a small pocket knife here, the James brand Elko, and I'm gonna put it in the other one. I mean, almost like it was practically made for that pocket knife. Okay, now what I can use the other big mesh pocket for, I could put some keys, I could put like some earbuds, either one I think works really well. And then I can magnet this closed. As you can see, quite a bit of stuff in there. Now earbuds, here's where that little side mesh pocket comes in handy. It's perfect for some earbuds. Next thing I want to do is grab an iPad mini 6 and put it into this back pocket. And then I can give you some measurements just so you can know what kind of a tablet will fit in here. So I would say 9 inches would be pretty comfortable. And then you can see here, the iPad mini doesn't even reach the height. So you can have something even a little bit taller in here. Okay, now if that's all I was taking as like an EDC setup, I mean, I've still got the front pocket here. I've still got the back pocket really isn't filled at all. I've got the wallet back there. I could still put more things. Now, speaking of what else I could do, I do have these side pockets. As I mentioned in the overview, this is really meant for like a small umbrella, but I actually found it works pretty well to hold like a small water bottle, and I can just cinch that down. There you go. Now, I will throw out a disclaimer here, this is not like really made for a water bottle exactly. I can shake this and then it'll just fall right out. But if you are just kind of slinging this around your shoulder, and you have the bag upright, it does work really well as like a kind of like a quick, like, hey, I just need to get something out of my hands and just put it into this pocket really quick while I do something else. And then speaking of what else you could use this little pocket for, if you're going to something like the grocery store, and a lot of times I'm getting my phone in and out of my pocket because I need to check it for what I need to buy. Sometimes it's just nice to have like a little quick pocket on a bag that you can like very quickly just stow something. Okay, so how about if you're taking some EDC items with you, everything that I've got still stuffed in here, but I also want to put a camera. X106 or a similarly sized camera can fit in here, no problem at all. And you still have like a little bit of room here on the side. So in terms of width on the interior, 9.5 inches or so. And then depth or height, 6.5, maybe 7. And then you do have, I would say, 3.25 inches worth of depth. So you do have there is some expandability where this can push out, but this bag is constructed pretty specifically where, I would say depending on what you're putting into this area, that 3, maybe 3.5 inches is kind of your limit on what you're able to do. Now, here's where something does kind of come into play. Because of the way that the zipper is formed on this, and if I show you a side view, you can see that the zipper kind of goes off at an angle like this, right? So what that means is that this doesn't open like as wide as it can. Like as you begin to put more and more items in here, especially if you're putting like a really large item like a switch or a tablet or something like that, now the back of the bag is pretty rigid. So as you're pulling this, you can see like this bit of material is now starting to kind of close the bag in a little bit. And it's not that it makes it difficult at all to get to items. You can see like I still have full access, but I do, and this purely preferential, I do wish that the zipper did just come straight down more in the middle. So that way the center of the bag could open up a little bit more unhindered, if that makes sense. But one trade-off of that is, I feel like because of the way that this is closed in a little bit, it does provide like a little bit of security for the items that are in here, if you're moving around and you have this bag open. So that's a little bit of a trade-off. But as you can see, like even if I put the X106 straight on its side, there's still lots of room over here. So if you were to pretend like maybe this was like an APS-C camera, like an A6700 by Sony, something like that, you do still have some room to squeeze in like a small lens if that's what you really wanted to do. I think this is going to work a little bit better for larger cameras and bigger lenses if you don't have some of the other EDC items in there. So something else I'll mention is like a use case for trips. If you're going to take this on a flight, they did have that luggage pass-through functionality on the back. So that's really, really cool. But as you can see, if I'm taking these items with me, I really don't have a place to put something like a Switch OLED. So you're gonna have to make a call on, and I can fit the Switch OLED into that back pocket. It's a little tight, but it does work. Maybe if NayoSmart were to give like a little bit more material here for it to stretch or something like that, it would be easier to get in and out, but it does work just fine. But if you're someone who wants to take like a small camera, a tablet, and a Switch with them, you're gonna have to make a little bit of a compromise here and a call on what you might want to take with you. Because as it stands right now, it is a little bit difficult to fit those items in there. Now, what I can do is maybe take the wallet and put it into the main compartment, and then this iPad mini will fit into this back pocket. I just pull the strap back a little bit, and now I can zip that. So it will fit back there. So I can make it work, but now you don't really have access to this back pocket for, like wallet or passport, receipts, something like that. So no matter what you do, if you are someone that likes to bring these particular 3 devices with you, like I said, you are going to have to make a little bit of a compromise here and a call on what you would like to take with you. So what I'm going to do next is let's take a look at loading this out with some bigger camera gear. And as I am getting this stuff out of here, I just want to remind you that everything I do here on the channel is self-supported. So if you can like and subscribe, it would be a huge help to me. Lets YouTube know that people are enjoying these videos and they want to see more. And as I mentioned before, if you decide to buy this bag, there is an affiliate link down below, which does help support the channel. Or if you like these reviews, you want to see more, you can hit the buy me a coffee link down below in the description. Okay, so for a bigger loadout, we have the Lumix S5 2X. That's gonna go into that main compartment, no problem at all. And I could even take one of the prime lenses here and I can slip it right next to it. Now, I actually took this bag with me on a photo job, and what I did to get 2 lenses in there was just put the camera on its side, and then I can put the 2 prime lenses right on top of each other. The bottom is pretty padded, which is really, really appreciated for camera gear. Now, something to keep note of, if you decide to load your bag out like this, they are floating around a little bit. Something that I can do here, just to give yourself a little extra peace of mind, just slip like an extra divider in there. And now at the very least, the lenses aren't hitting the camera. So here is a little bit of a modification from the dividers that I used for the Toshi sling. So like I've taken off the sides so that way this can squish down a little bit more. Yeah, I think that does work. Now, if you are a videographer, you can fit this here. We'll put this into the main compartment. And then you do have like this front area here for maybe like batteries. So I can put an extra battery into that little front mesh right there. Maybe I've got like an extra SD card with me that can go into that front mesh. And then, like extra lens caps or something can go into that pocket, or maybe like some ND filter or some other filters can go into that front. I mean, they can also go into here. And now if you're asking yourself, will a lens fit on those side pockets? At least for these Lumix primes, if I put them bottom that way, it can work. So this might be a situation where you're just doing this just to get to your destination. Interior, you have your camera body and the lens, and then your extra lens there. And then you can just set this down on the ground, and then your lens is there waiting for you to grab when you need it. I think for me, what I really appreciate about the bag, just for like video gear, camera gear, is all of the extra little pockets that can just provide for you a lot of flexibility and functionality, like as you're trying to get more equipment in here. Something to note though is there's not technically a way to carry a tripod on here. There's nothing down here that's going to accommodate a tripod. Now, if you have something really small, about 6 inches high, then what I was able to do was put it here on the side and then tighten this up. That can work like as a temporary thing. But again, like this is really just going to be very temporary. Now, as I said, maybe just you're putting some things in here just to get to your destination. And then once you're there, you have it out and you're actively using it. All right, so let's do some final thoughts and wrap up and just kind of talk about who I think this bag is for. I mean, overall, like this is a really sleek looking bag. Like it's got that urban minimalist kind of feel to it. And the materials are really, really nice on it. It's just smooth to the touch. It looks good. It feels good. And then just all like the little details that they have on the bag. Some of the zipper pulls and like the coating here on the top, and also just the functionality that you're getting with some of these extra straps and buckles. And as I said, I'm a huge fan of these side pockets. They work great as like a temporary, just take things out of my hands kind of pocket. And then I really like the decisions that they made on the interior for like the little side pockets and this front magnetic pocket. So if you're looking for like EDC items, just something to get you through a work day in the city, I think this can work really, really well for you. There's tons of organization in here for you to be able to put whatever it is that you need. Now, if you're a photographer and you like to have some EDC items with you and then a small camera setup, I think it works really well for that. If you're looking for a travel bag, something to take with you on a plane, it can work for that. But as I mentioned earlier, just be aware that it is a little tough to fit something like a Switch, a tablet, and a camera. You're gonna have to make a call and some trade-offs on what you want to take with you. Now, if you are a videographer, you can make it work for that, but your setup has to be really, really minimal and super light. And if you're taking like a tripod or a selfie stick or something with you, the only way that you're gonna have to carry it with you is these side straps. So it is gonna have to be pretty small in order to work with these side straps here. Okay, so that has been my review of the NayoSmart UL1. As I mentioned before in the very beginning, if you like this bag, definitely check out the affiliate link below. It helps support the channel at no additional cost to you. And hit that like and subscribe. And I will catch you all in the next one.